Hello, everybody, and welcome back to today's episode of the Thriving NP. I'm your host, Megan, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking all about the Thriving NP, introducing my website called thrivingnp.com, and talking about mentorship because that's what Thriving NP is all about, is having a sustainable mentorship throughout your career that's going to be transformative to you. Now, I think mentorship is one of the most powerful and underutilized tools that nurses have that can really make significant changes in your career, both personal and professional. And so this is why I created the Thriving NP, because I found it to be super helpful, and I bet you will too. Now, there's been multiple times throughout my nursing career that I really wish I had a mentor. And now reflecting back on it, there has been specific times, specifically during my transition from a nurse to a nurse practitioner and my transition into practice, that I really struggled, that I really would have benefited from having a direct mentor, not a collaborating provider, not my preceptor, none of that, somebody who was a true mentor. And so this is also part of the reason why I created the Thriving NP, to give those individuals a space or a place to go seek a mentor that they may need if they feel like they don't have one. So part of today, I'm going to just dive into like what mentorship is, why I think it's important, why you might want to consider getting a mentor. And then towards the end of this conversation, I'm going to chat a little bit about maybe some services that I offer, and then how you might be able to advocate for yourself with your organization, or maybe power in numbers to try to get some directed mentorship at your place of at your place of work. So let's dive into it. So we all might think about who a mentor is, and I want all of us to think about who we think our mentor is right now. We have some people throughout our career that we might think about as mentors, but after this conversation, I want you to think back and reflect to see, are they true mentors, or were they just people of influence that we had on our life at that moment? So think about that. Think about who those people are, and then we'll circle back to that at the end. So a mentor is really somebody who guides you, they partner with you, they agree to collaborate with you, they choose to problem solve with you, they choose to work on leadership skills, personal and professional development, and they're also working towards scholarly advancement. Now, of course, they're teachers or advisors, they're coaches, they could be colleagues, they could be friends even, but it's really good when our mentor has a little bit of structure around who they are and what they're doing for us. So, of course, there's a lot. I'm just going to say, for the ease of examples throughout this conversation, let's have a primary example just be the transition into practice from nursing to becoming a nurse practitioner and transitioning into practice in that NP role, because that is one of the most transformative moments for many nurse practitioners, and one that we all quite remember, and one that is really tangible to discuss, and where I think a lot of us may have had a difficult time, or maybe somebody's coming to take a listen to this because they're about to go through that transition. So when we're thinking of a mentor in the context of transitioning into practice, I really see a mentor as working on two buckets. So bucket number one is about skills and knowledge, and then bucket number two is emotional needs, cognitive support. And those are two separate things, but they're also very intertwined. So a mentor is there to maybe help you with clinical skills, talk about procedural skills, talk about tough patient cases when you're first starting out, go and review maybe some big concepts that you missed in NP school that you wish you had. They are maybe there to help you with your time management skills, maybe helping you delegate more, helping you advocate for things that you need. They're just helping you throughout your overall transition. Maybe they're helping you with EHR tips. So it's a more practical side of things. Then there's the second bucket, which is our emotional needs throughout our transitions and our changes. And that's all the cognitive support. So building up that confidence, having less imposter syndrome, talking about imposter syndrome and working through imposter syndrome, preventing burnout, having to deal with difficult days emotionally. There's a lot of emotional and cognitive sides of the nursing field that we all know exist. And I think what mentorship really does for a mentee, and especially someone transitioning, is they really work on weaving those two together because they are so interconnected. And usually when you're a new grad, you're so overwhelmed by like the daily skills side of bucket number one, that we kind of forget about bucket number two until you're 2 or 3 or 4, and you really should be working on them simultaneously. So when I think of a mentor, they're an advisor, they teach, and they really focus on these two different sides of what it means to be a nurse or a provider, a nurse practitioner. So, who should your mentor be? Now, this is a big, obviously, there's exceptions to everything, but in general, your mentor should be somebody who has like similar knowledge to you. What I mean by that is they're a nurse practitioner themselves. In a perfect world, it is ideal to get mentored by somebody who has similar educational background to you. So a nurse practitioner understands what the schooling's like. They understand what type of educational background you have. They understand the transition into practice. They know what it takes. They understand how difficult certain situations can be. In a ideal situation, or in our situation where you're working with an individual that's transitioning into NP practice, you might want to seek out a mentor that's in your same specialty. So maybe like if you're in family, like an FNP, you want to seek that from an FNP, or somebody in primary care versus somebody who's in acute care or emergency medicine. Obviously would like to seek mentorship through somebody who went through that similar career path that they did. And this will change. Your mentors change throughout your lifetime, but when you need a mentor for a very specific transition, those are types of mentors you want to look for. So somebody who's experienced in that field, someone who is similar to you as like an APRN, advanced practice nurse, and somebody who has some time within that field. Now, it doesn't mean you can't seek a physician or a PA as a mentor. Of course, actually, funny enough, when you look at the research, a lot of nurse practitioners do get mentored by physicians, and I could see that definitely happening in a lot of specialties. But I do think there's something to be said for nurse practitioners being mentored by other NPs, and I think most people would agree. So they have knowledge, experience, and a similar background to you. And then you want to seek a mentor that has time. And I think this is like one of the biggest keys that a lot of new grads miss, and people transitioning from different specialties into another. Because when you seek a mentor, you're looking for somebody who wants to dedicate time. You're both agreeing to designate time in a perfect world outside of your day. What I mean by that, they're probably unlikely to be, a mentor is not really meant to be a collaborating provider. You might have a really good relationship with your collaborating provider. You might look up to them as a mentor in a similar way. Maybe you guys have similar conversations throughout the day, or once or twice a month, or maybe your medical director is somebody that you find as a mentor for you, but you're not usually meeting that often or chatting that often to really make significant practice improvements. And usually you want to have a very specific time. So what I mean by that, you want to set aside time, whatever that looks like for you. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, sometimes it's once a month. Maybe you do something more formal where it's every week for check-ins, and you're both agreeing to sit down and have that time together. That is where the lines get a little bit blurred when you're working with a colleague, because as we all know, when we're transitioning into practice, it can be very difficult to, most of your day is consumed with making decisions and really working on that knowledge and that skill set. And then your collaborating provider is going to be there to answer questions, or your mentorship, or your preceptor or your colleague who you started the job with, but they're not going to be there to sit there and have those more difficult conversations or go through those tougher cases all the time, because they're busy too, and they may not have the time to really do that and facilitate that personal and professional development. And that's where a mentor-mentee relationship that's more formal really comes into play. Now, we all think of our mentors throughout our nursing career. Do you think of your preceptor? You think of somebody you maybe started your job with, maybe another provider that's working at your job that's just been there for a couple years longer than you. And those are all great point of contacts. I'm never saying that you don't want to really invest in those relationships, but I'm trying to point out that sometimes those relationships are not the best person. Those individuals are not the best people to be your mentor. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody that's outside of your organization that you can talk to about problem solving or more professional development. Maybe they just, like I said before, don't have the physical time to do it. And so that's something that you're setting time aside. So this is just one of the most common misconceptions because I think we all think of our preceptors as mentors. And I want to challenge you to not think of your preceptors so much as mentors. So, what are some benefits? They can be a colleague. Oftentimes, I do see with more formal, like a residency program, that you do get some of that more mentorship time. And then I will say sometimes in specialty clinics, like if you're getting into a very niche specialty, you're probably going to have mentorship time carved out, but not always. So if you're thinking about a role transition into a very specific setting, you might want to ask or even advocate for that or even negotiate that in your contract to get a very specific mentee type of relationship. So, what are some benefits of mentorship? So, some of the most common things that I see and for myself and that I hear from other people is usually job satisfaction. You're going to be a lot happier in your career. You're going to want to stay at your job a lot more if you have dedicated mentorship or a mentor that's really facilitating and investing in you staying there. They want to retain you, they want you to be happy, and they want to improve your skill set as a nurse practitioner as well. Usually you're going to have a lot more self-awareness. You're going to be more confident. You're going to have more self-efficacy. You're going to feel like you're part of the community. You're going to feel a lot more collaborative with everybody else. So those are some really positive things that come out of mentorship. And also mentors do benefit as well. It's not just the mentee who's always benefiting. Usually these similar adjectives are expressed by mentors as well. So maybe you are a new grad or someone transitioning, like I said before, and you're trying to advocate for ways to have a more formal mentor. What are some tools that you might want? What are some tools that you might have to go negotiate with? So I have a couple of thoughts here. So one, you could just directly ask for time within your week. So maybe it's not every week, maybe it's every 2 weeks you get a dedicated hour that's not your admin, but an hour with a mentor. Now this person could be within the organization if they want to keep it within the organization, or you might say, I have this outside mentor that I want to meet with throughout my week, and you guys can negotiate out how you want that to look like, or how you, for whatever purposes, you can negotiate that on your own. So you can bring it up before you start. Or maybe you're already a new grad, but you're struggling and nobody really within the organization is really fitting that role as a mentor. Or the opposite, maybe you're the only nurse practitioner there and you don't have any other NPs within your radius or within your organization that you can really relate to. You might have a lot of physician mentors, but you don't have that NP mentor. That might be a good advocating tool for you to bring up to your organization, just about how it would increase your happiness, increase your retention, and may help you guys recruit other NPs. And maybe the most strongest way to advocate is if you work in an organization that has many nurse practitioners or many advanced practice providers, you guys can have powers in numbers. You guys could go to your organization together and say, I think all of us could benefit from having a designated mentorship time. Maybe we could all do a call once every 2 weeks and have an hour of time to go through tough cases, etc., so that we feel like we're supported and have that support. So those are some things that you can think about doing. And I would definitely highly recommend not having it during your own admin time, but that would be a way that you could do it within your clinic day and still be able to meet with your mentor. You could also, you really just want to have protected time. So most people don't have, like, throughout the day, it's really, really chaotic and it's really busy. So if you have agreeable time, you want to make sure that it's like everyone's fed, everyone gets a break, you're not running late, you're not missing half of your meeting because you're seeing patients, etc. So I really want you to consider that as well. So now that we went through what a mentor is, who a mentor or what a mentor does, how they can benefit you, how can maybe you could be that mentee, where can you find mentors if they are not at your clinical practice? Of course, you can look at your network. You can see, is there somebody in my network that is willing to be my mentor? Maybe somebody you went to school with. Next thing you could do, you could maybe find one within your professional organization. You're welcome to do that. That's a great way to find a mentor, but sometimes it's not the same as hiring a mentor. And So that brings me to my last point. You might want to just go ahead and find a mentor that you feel like you can mesh with, and somebody that you might just want to hire for a period of time, so you know for certain that you're going to get that help and that support during a transitional phase if you're going through one. Now, mentors are good at all aspects of our career, not just during transitional phases, but that is like in my mind a must have, so that you just have someone that's kind of you're able to soundboard off of and kind of keeps you grounded throughout the transition. So if you go on to thrivingnp.com, you'll notice that there's 3 big groups of mentors of mentorship that I offer specifically at thrivingnp.com. And these are not the only ones, but these are just a few. The first one is really geared towards the aspiring NP. So this is targeted towards nurses who may be thinking about considering the field, like maybe going back to school, maybe you're thinking about going to NP school, you don't know what to ask. How do I evaluate programs so that I feel like I'm picking the right program for me? What's like cost analysis? Maybe you are not even in the field of nursing whatsoever and you're thinking about becoming a nurse. Maybe you're having a second career or a career transition and you just want to talk to another nurse that's maybe not your auntie or your uncle or your friends of a friend about what it's like to be a nurse, but have like targeted real life feedback questions. So sometimes having like a more structured mentor can be helpful when you're making some of these big decisions. Next big category when I think about people who need mentors are the new grad. So as we already mentioned, as I mentioned earlier in this segment, is you finish school and that's really when the hard part begins, because it's all of these emotional but also very skill set based changes that are happening so rapidly, and it may be totally different than the type of environment that you precepted in. So it's really, I think, necessary to have some type of formal mentorship. It doesn't have to be a paid mentor, but it could be like you need to identify who that is for you. So whether that's within your organization or outside of your organization. I also think it's really helpful to have a mentor when it comes to like job search, contract negotiation. Maybe you don't know how to like even negotiate or what to negotiate, or how can you start healthy habits early on so you don't feel burnt out by year 2 or 3. And then the last category that I really think this could be helpful for is basically anybody else in the nursing profession. And I say that a little tongue in cheek because I really think it's true, because we always are, nurses are so transformative. There's constantly changes. There's never a dull moment in nursing. People are always shaking it up, finding a new specialty, learning a new skill, advocating for nurses. I mean, you can get into leadership, you can get into management. There's so many other avenues where you might need some guidance as a nurse or as a nurse practitioner. So this is really the bucket that everybody else falls into. So maybe you're starting a new job. Maybe you're feeling really burnout and you need help. Or maybe you are really considering, maybe you want to go back to school and become a DMP. Maybe you want to change careers altogether. So this is really a great place to seek mentorship when you're really having a lot of these thoughts, or maybe you think that maybe you would benefit if any of these moments or scenarios really resonated with you. So anyways, that's all we have for today. We're running out of time. So just to reiterate, always seek a mentor who is willing to work with you, that sets time aside, somebody that you are jiving with, somebody who has similar background and experience to you, and someone that's willing to take that time and really work with you. So if you're looking for a mentor, you can always check out the thrivingnp.com. Again, thrivingnp.com. You can also look on my Instagram and Facebook for more information. Okay, check us out in the next episode. And thanks so much for tuning in to The Thriving NP. Goodbye.